So yesterday, the Indiana Fever won again. They've won quite a lot recently. They just won again, which is good for them considering the fact that after a 1-8 start on the season, they are now 9-6 or 10-6, which has been crazy considering the fact that they have now beaten 3 teams above 500 in the last 2 weeks. And up until that point, it took nearly 2 entire years, nearly 3 seasons for them to do that. But before we get on to things, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are trying to hit 22.5 subscribers by the end of the day. 5K subscribers by the end of the day. Right now, we are 133 off. But a lot of people were talking about Caitlin Clark, that she should have been ejected yesterday. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this right here. And this is from Angel Reese, hype superfan number 1, Bulls kick ass. And again, I think it's great. I'm cool with the Angel Reese superfans as long as it doesn't get like real personal. As long as like it doesn't get bad either way. It's cool being a superfan either side. So this is the play. This is the play that supposedly she should have been ejected on. She's dribbling down the court. Her arm gets yanked. Transition take foul. That is an intentional transition take foul. She just attempts to stop her break and she grabs her arm. So what Caitlin does, not even looking, just flails. She does clock her in the face though. In fairness, that is like, look, that's not a basketball. It's a basketball play, but it's like, it is the rules there for, like the transition take foul there is there for that reason. It is to discourage this from happening. Like you can't just grab somebody as they're running by you. Like there is a literal rule in the game that you're not allowed to do that. So it should have been called transition take foul, but Caitlin Clark flailing back and catches her in the face. People are calling for an ejection on that. A dirty play by Caitlin Clark. She's not even looking what she's doing. She's not going for her face. She's trying to push her off. Like that's literally what it is. She's flailing with contact and she's trying to. I don't even know if she's trying to push her off. I think she's just. I think this is a flop from Caitlin Clark. I think this is genuinely just Caitlin Clark. Her arm gets yanked and just swings her arm back. And to be fair, like the Minnesota coach said as much when asked about it, and it was like, "Oh, it was just a flail," which I think it was. I genuinely think that that's all this was a flail. I think that is the entire thing. It is somebody who got grabbed and they just swiped their arm back. It connected at the end of the day. So you have to call something. You have to make a call on that. It connected. It should have been the correct call would have been transition take foul, technical foul, Caitlin Clark. They call a regular foul, technical foul, Caitlin Clark. So again, that's not it's not a bad call. Look, again, the transition take foul is a little more dubious. It was the most obvious technical foul I have ever seen in my life. And the referees, it was challenged, and the referees made the right call. So I don't understand why this is all about, why people are talking about how this should be a ejection. This was somehow a flagrant one. A flagrant one is unnecessary contact and excessive contact. There is barely contact here. This is just a swipe of the arm. This is your arm gets grabbed and just swiped off. This is a flail. If you want to hit someone in the face, you're going to hit someone in the face a lot harder than that. That's all I'm going to say. Like, if you're going to do... If Caitlin Clark meant to smack her in the face, I think she would have done it a lot harder than that. And at the same time, look, the refs made the right call. It is a technical foul. It is without question a technical foul. Is it a smart thing for Caitlin to have done? No. Really not. I think it was just a blatant foul. She was frustrated and it was bad. But that's what happens. You do that twice in a game, you're gone. And the fact is that she's now adding up and getting closer to a suspension. And I think that's the right thing. It's like, if you consistently do this, the suspension should be on the cards. And I think it's just, the real reason for this is that people were like overly complaining about the Kennedy Carter situation. That should have never, like, it should have been a flagrant 2. She should have been kicked out of the game. But it should have never been. I think the biggest problem with the Kennedy Carter situation is that the day of, the refs called as a common foul when it was very clearly a flagrant 1 at the worst case, or at the best case, and it really should have been a flagrant 2 and kicked out. I think just letter of the law, this is a tech. It is a technical foul. It is the exact same thing as when Brittany Griner kind of pushed off Aaliyah Boston when they were getting into it and ended up kind of pushing her face a little bit. It is a technical foul, and that is the precedent that the rules have set. If this was called a flagrant 1, it's not a bad call. If this was not called, it would be a bad call. It's somewhere between a tech and a flagrant 1 for Caitlin Clark. Like, that is what the call is. Just like I think her shoving Julie Vanloo should have been called as a tech, but I think the reason why I didn't call it as a tech was that she was bear hugged the possession before. And also, if you're watching the game, if you looked at this game with Caitlin Clark, she's been bear hugged. She's being bear hugged, so she's kind of frustrating and lashing out a little bit. And look, the refs have got to put a stop to it, and they did. They made the right call. Like, it's semantics whether or not this is a flagrant 1 or a tech. And if you are a fan of the Lynx, or you are a fan who doesn't like Caitlin Clark, you're probably hoping that it's a flagrant 1 because, well, one, a flagrant 1 is you get more from a flagrant 1 than you do from a tech. You get 2 free throws in possession on a flagrant 1. For a tech, you just get 1 free throw. But at the same time, like, it's no worse than that. Saying that this is any sort of this is just it didn't matter where she was. This is just, it looks like a flail. It's a flail like a caught in the face. It is what it is. And that's the thing, is that, like, if you're going to flail like Caitlin Clark is, you gotta just be smart. You gotta not even be smart. You gotta just make sure you don't hit someone in the face. Like, if she flailed and hit her in the chest a little bit lower than the face, it would have been nothing. It would have just been a defensive foul. But you gotta just be smart, especially when the play is off, it's after the ball, and you can kind of just swing your arm blindly. It can go anywhere and it caught her in the face. But at the end of the day, I think the refs did make the right call. I think had it been a flagrant 1, you couldn't complain. If it was a tech, you couldn't really complain either way. I think if we're just looking at this as a basketball play in isolation, that is what it is. It's one of those two. But also, they might have missed a transition take foul. Ironically, I think probably transition take foul into a flagrant 1 is probably the correct call. So 1 free throw for Caitlin Clark, then 2 free throws in possession for whoever it was she slapped in the face. That's probably what it should have been. But in the end, it was 1 free throw for them, possession for Indiana. So it probably evens out. It's probably 2 calls where you're like, 2 50-50 calls where the refs one went probably the less severe in both of the 50-50 calls. So I think that it's not a terrible call. And again, I think this is very different than everyone going mad about the Angel Reese getting Caitlin Clark in the head. That was a block attempt. Again, if she wanted to hit Caitlin Clark in the head with how bad she's a blocking shot, she would have missed. That was a block attempt. We've all seen it. Like, look, it happens every game. Like, that is the definition of flagrant 1 in the dictionary. Like, if flagrant 1 was in the dictionary, it would be the Angel Reese one. If flagrant 2 was, if you could find what a flagrant 2 was, it's probably the Kennedy Carter situation. But I think the reason why the Kennedy Carter situation blew up is because of when it was. It was during the time where everyone was talking about Caitlin Clark being bullied by players and them out to get her and out to hurt her. And then everyone's eyes are on this game and they see that. That was where it was really just a bad look. It was a bad look entirely. For Kennedy Carter, who I actually think, as far as attitude-wise, is gone. You can see since that game, it's been really good. Her attitude has been exceptionally good since then. But again, I'm not even reading the comments because this guy's obviously followed by some of, like, the worst of the worst on one side. Like, again, there is the worst of the worst on both sides. Like, it is, like, it's not going to be about basketball. But when we're talking purely about basketball in here, like, look, she grazed her face. She grazed her face. The referees dealt with it in the game. Teed her up. If she had gotten another technical foul, she would have been out of the game. If she had one at this point, she would have been out of the game. It was the correct call. Probably the correct call. Again, if you want to argue it's a flagrant 1, I'm not going to argue with you. It's one or the other. And there is no way. There is no circumstance. If a player gets thrown out for that, game's gone. If a player gets thrown out of the game for flailing after getting their arm grabbed, game's gone. Game's gone. Joel Embiid, if you're going to get thrown out for that, Joel Embiid's going to get kicked out of every second game he plays. Because when Joel Embiid just randomly or when he feels contact and jumps on the ground, just kicks his leg out, then that has to be a disqualifying foul as well. Every time Joel Embiid hits somebody by flailing, it's got to be a disqualifying foul as well. But I think the refs made the right call at the end of the day. People are going to go crazy because just like I think the refs made the right call with the Angel Reese thing, people are just going to go crazy when it's one of these two. Whatever they do, they're going to blow it up to an extent that it shouldn't be. Technical foul is probably the right call.